James Board. I'm Luke.
I'm Lars.
And I'm Dad.
This is a chronological retrospective of every James Bond movie. How's everyone doing tonight?
Doing pretty good.
Good.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Mom's still got bronchitis. The coughing has gone down, but I think it just wore out, so she's just tired. But she said to say hello.
Well, hello. I'm glad that she's doing better.
Yeah, doing really great. I was down in, or I was up in Chicago the past couple days. I got to go to a really cool aquarium, saw some beluga whales, and
Neat.
I got to eat some deep dish pizza. And Chicago's, I really like Chicago. It's a really cool city.
Your kind of town, Chicago is?
Yes, my kind of town.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I dig it a lot. It's a cool place. Have y'all been up there before?
I have been to the airport.
And I have been to the airport.
Cool.
Well,
That's pretty much it. So Lucas and I, we can both say that it is an airport.
Well, I would recommend going to more than the airport.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would like to.
Yeah,
That
our
would be great.
neighbors, Jake from next door is not from State Farm, but he's from Illinois, and I told him, Lars, that you were in Chicago and you were sending us some pictures of it, and he goes, "Oh, that's my favorite place. I love to go to Chicago."
Nice. I'm doing fine. Just getting ready for the holiday season. Everything's good. We're getting some stuff moved on to new parties. Just selling off some old stuff on eBay. It's nice. Has been good.
Good.
Yep. Yeah. So it's been a while for James Bond, guys. How are we doing?
Well, I can say that it's still been a while for James Bond because that was a tough one. But
Yeah.
It was tough. It was not as tough as I thought it was going to be, if I'm going to be completely honest.
Here's my thought. So with tonight's feature is Never Say Never Again from 1983, and my overriding thought about this whole movie the entire time was I didn't ask for Pepsi.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I felt the entire time. Is this movie was fine, but I didn't ask for Pepsi, and this felt like a Pepsi brand Coke, a Pepsi brand James Bond.
Wow.
And
I personally think you're being incredibly kind. But
Yeah, so Never Say Never Again. It was not great. There were glimmers of things I liked about it, I think that's what surprised me. I'd never seen this one. I'd always heard about it.
oh, really?
Never saw this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're getting into a lot of them that I haven't seen.
Uh-huh.
I had seen one segment of this in particular.
And so I knew of like the backstory, so it's all built up. You know, it's all this, this intrigue and all this stuff. And what it amounted to was, fine. Like it wasn't the worst movie I've ever seen. I still don't think it's the worst James Bond movie that we've seen.
Oh God, no! It's not Diamonds Are Forever.
It wasn't great. There were some things I liked about it. It was mostly boring.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think which again, that surprised me that I wasn't like a complete, oh, this is the worst thing ever. It was just more like, well, okay, this is a soulless cash grab. That's really why they're doing this.
Oh, absolutely.
Utterly.
It wasn't Diamonds Are Forever. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Luke.
So,
I
yeah,
was just going to say, if you want to, I was going to actually try to do my thing at the beginning, but I really can't because it isn't. I mean, for the people that don't understand this, there was some, what would you call it, guys?
Rights issues.
Controversy. Yeah, exactly. There was a rights issue between what Ian Fleming wrote and what he did with somebody else, and this particular one, Thunderball. There was a big controversy about it, and some other groups said, well, no, actually, we own the rights to that. We'd already talked about Thunderball. So this in essence, was just a remake of Thunderball.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But
without the 60s style and kitsch.
without, and this is my opinion, and without everything.
Yeah.
Other than I got to see Sean Connery again, but then I was incredibly disappointed there too. But
It's funny.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry, Lucas. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it's funny because the whole movie is James Bond. It's an older James Bond who's close to retirement, and he's younger than Roger Moore.
yeah, exactly.
Right. I liked the older take on James Bond, and they make some references to that. I wish they could have done a lot more with it, and that they eventually do more with it with Daniel Craig down the line.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You know, Sean Connery still has kind of the swagger. I think what would have made the movie better is one, not doing it, but then not remaking one of the don't remake one of the good. Why are you remaking one of the good ones? That's crazy. But make the Kim Basinger character older. Like, he's an older man.
Yeah.
You can age up everybody. Yep. You can age like the villain. You can age everybody up, and that would actually be kind of interesting. Like, not only is James Bond losing a step as the hero, the villains are now. Maybe like some of their plans don't work out as well as they had because they're kind of been doing this for so long that they're going through the motions. I don't know. That could have been an interesting way to go about it.
Yeah. But they didn't.
Right.
Oh, no.
And that's the problem.
They yeah, exactly. Everything. I mean, this my opinion. M, or the character that played M, is a very good actor. I can't for the life of me think of his name.
He was the guy that shot up the crowd in Gandhi. I remember him from that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
yeah.
I mean,
And he was
like a classically trained actor, like really good.
And he is excellent. And he was horrible as an M-ish person. He just, he was all about you need to remove the toxins from your body, so stop smoking and stop drinking. And then they actually bring in Mr. Bean for some comic relief for some reason that I'm like, why is he doing this?
Because I think that was in the period when he was in a lot. He's a really good actor. Rowan Atkinson's a really good actor.
But no, I said Mr. Bean on purpose because that's really who he was playing. It was this idiot.
Yes.
That I didn't understand. I guess for me, the worst part of the whole thing is that I guess I'm so tuned in. A James Bond movie has the music. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't have the music, I can't get into it. And I don't know. I just couldn't get into it.
Well, that's
all
that's
because
partly
of the
what
music.
I mean. That's partly what I mean by I didn't ask for Pepsi. Is most of the parts are here. The music is passable. The acting's passable. The action's passable. Everything is fine, but you don't ask for a rum and Pepsi. You ask for a rum and Coke, and all of the parts here don't work. None of the parts here work.
You keep saying Pepsi. I'm thinking more like Snapple. I don't know. It was
Mr. Pibb's great. Dr. Thunder.
Mr. Pibb.
No, Mr. Pibb's fine.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe Tab.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Maybe Tab.
Well, very, very 80s here. Yeah. It's. I mean, all right. Anything. Let's do this a different way. Anything that you liked. Because I actually like this.
Well, I tell you what, Lars, why don't you lead it off then? Because you said that you actually thought there were some redeeming values in it. So maybe you can convince me to tell us what you liked it. No. I don't mean it that way. I mean, tell us what you liked about it.
I actually liked the look of it. I thought the cinematography was good. I liked that there was a particular scene when they're in the casino, and it's kind of dark, and I don't know. I like the look of it. It's very 80s, but the cinematography I enjoyed. I thought that the health spa fight was a little bit more dangerous than James Bond getting stretched to death. in a because that's what happened in Thunderball. It was a little bit.
I know. Yep.
There's a little bit more something there. I thought,
and by the way, I'm going to interrupt you right now. You know the guy that he fought in the health spa there. Do you know who he was? He was remember in Indiana Jones when he's fighting the Nazi on the airplane, the bald guy. That's was him.
So he plays the heavy.
Yeah,
he plays the heavy in movies.
He played the heavy. But I will say that was a good fight. I agree with you.
Yeah,
that was a good fight.
I like that fight. I thought I liked the whole like the Secret Service has kind of gotten in disrepair. Like as James Bond has gotten older, like their Q branch is kind of looks like sort of fly by night almost now. Like they've gotten their funding taken away. Now that like James Bond's kind of like been pushed to the side, and Q's a little bit excited because hey, now that we actually have like a proper spy back, we might get our money back. I don't know, like something like just that was kind of like glimmers of hey, you could have done something interesting with this.
Absolutely, there are some moving parts that I did enjoy.
And if you say the bit about the cinematography is good, but it was in the 80s, well, if it was in the 80s and it was good, well, that's a good thing. I mean, it couldn't be better than when it was, so that's okay.
I like that. I thought I like the actor that plays Felix, Bernie Casey.
Yeah, he's good anyway.
Yep. Yeah, I liked him. He was good in this. It was funny. Again, it is Thunderball. So what do we remember about Thunderball? We remember the jetpack
and the other jetpack.
And they found a way to kind of make the jetpack happen in this. And that it's underwater. I don't know. It also I guess part of what I find interesting is that they've decided to remake Thunderball, and part of this is we have the luxury of we're looking back on the span of James Bond movies, and while I like Thunderball, that wouldn't be the one that I would choose to remake. So it's almost
that was the only one that was the one that was in contention.
Right.
Well, right. But
so that's why they had to
choose that one. But it is in that's strange that this is the one story that was in contention. Like why? I don't know. And I guess it was because Fleming developed the story specifically for a movie. And that's what I heard. And then the guy that blah 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 blah. I don't know. It reminds me of. So I'm going to pose this question to everybody: who made Night of the Living Dead?
Romero and another dude whose name I can't remember.
And another dude. Exactly. And I bring up the other dude because the other dude is named John Russo. He wrote it with George Romero. And after Night of the Living Dead, the two split up. And George Romero went on to make, Martin and Dawn of the Dead and all these, very socially interesting zombie movies. And John Russo went on to make, softcore porn.
So he was the one that got into the money.
So you see where the created who was actually really behind Night of the Living Dead, and I feel like with this is a perfect example of sure, Kevin McClory had some input in Thunderball, but how much? And it doesn't seem like it was a lot.
As well as it was. Yeah, go ahead.
Didn't Russo make those weird Night of the Living Dead spin-off sequels, his own timeline in the 80s that were just...
Yes. He did the remake, the restoration, which they reshot new scenes and not great.
But I mean, I think that's a good point, Lars, because the Ian Fleming and Albert Broccoli combination and team really made these movies. And when Ian Fleming died, Broccoli and the whole, what is it, Eon Productions or whatever it is, I think they really had the James Bond formula, maybe. I don't know. They really knew what how to do that. And the other guy, this McClory or whatever his name was, he wasn't really clued into that, so they tried to make this other version that just didn't have that. It was that was a really good example, Lucas, about it wasn't Coke, it was Pepsi. It really was I think this is a James Bond movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's I kept thinking about it that way. It's got smatterings and things that feel like it's a James Bond movie, then other times it really doesn't feel that way.
Not quite. Almost, but not quite.
Yeah.
It's almost, but not quite. Yeah, that's a good way to think of it.
Yeah.
With it's got kind of an interesting, like, on paper, it actually shouldn't be. It should be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got the right James Bond. It's got Irvin Kershner,
Who did Empire?
Who did Empire? Who did
Absolutely
The Right Stuff? I mean, this is not a slouch director. Like he's a very good director. It's got. I mean, it also isn't like a cheaply made movie. Like this is a Hollywood release.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this would almost be a really good paper on if I get all the right elements into a movie, like you just said. Why didn't it turn out good?
Right. I mean, Max von Sydow.
He's not a slouch.
He's incredible.
Very much
No, I mean he was in Out of Africa. He's fantastic.
I mean, the Exorcist.
Oh no, not Max von. No, that's Max von Sydow was in it.
The Exorcist. I mean, yeah.
Skyrim.
Klaus. That's who I was talking about. The actual bad guy.
The guy who plays Largo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was something.
He's very good. I can't.
Yeah. That was a change I did actually kind of think was interesting, because when we watched Thunderball, you brought up that when you were a kid you thought Largo was super cool and like this guy, and in this one he's this creepy nebbish nerd and just like awkward, and it made him more unsettling and like more of a threat.
Really?
Yeah, no, because I didn't look. Yeah, he felt more of a threat. That being said, that wasn't a high bar. And he didn't really he wasn't Goldfinger. He wasn't Alec Trevelyan. He wasn't any of the actual heavy hitter people, but he was still creepy and effective to me in ways. Mm-hmm. And then he plays a video game against Bond.
Oh, that was bad.
And Lars, I was telling Lucas that when we were going to do this, I said, this is before I watched it. I watched it last night. Mm-hmm. I told Lucas, I seem to remember that he plays this video game in this movie. And I don't know why that stuck in my head, because when I went to the theater to see this, I remembered him playing this video game, and I remember how idiotic it was.
It's the only scene in this entire movie I had seen before. Only thing I knew about this, other than it was Thunderball. Like, the only thing I had seen was him playing a video game. And fine. It didn't even make sense as a video game. That was the mind-boggling thing, is that I'm sitting there, like, I've played more than my fair share of video games. I have played way too many of them.
No.
I've got a game playing right now as I'm talking to you. And and it was mind-numbing because
I don't know what they were doing.
I was trying to follow the rules and trying to figure out what the hell was going on, and it made no sense. And that bothered me on a really profound level.
Other than the only thing I could think of was that Largo was trying to show Dominique that he was a much cooler guy than James Bond.
Domino.
Yes.
Domino. Thank you, Domino. Yeah. It made no sense.
No, and I guess that falls into the dating of this, that hey, video games are new and cool and
Yep.
That's why in Superman 3 there's a video game.
oh my God, I remember.
Well, and this again, you're saying this wasn't Superman 3. This wasn't. It was just more of like I know why they made this.
Yeah.
And
I know why this was made, but I wish it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It did, and it's funny. It did well. It didn't do as well as the Roger Moore, because this came out the same year as Octopussy. And Octopussy did better, and I liked Octopussy better than this.
Me too.
Even though I wasn't a huge fan of Octopussy, this one was. was better.
Uh-huh.
I still think this was better than Diamonds Are Forever. Not by much.
I think
but
that's I think that's the low
think
point.
it's better. For me, that was the low point.
Yeah, I guess for me, I'll agree with you, Lawrence. If we're saying that what we just watched was a James Bond movie, then yes, it might have been better. But this wasn't a James Bond movie.
Of all the James Bond movies we've
to
watched,
me, this was not a James Bond movie. Yeah. It was a movie that had James Bond in it as a character. It had a bunch of other characters. It wasn't a James Bond movie.
Mm-hmm. And I can understand that.
Yeah.
I don't agree with it, but I can understand your statement.
Oh no! It's just my opinion. Yep.
No, but it's also you're right that I mean it's more akin to Casino Royale, where James Bond is a character in it, but we were not going to say that that's a James Bond movie. There's elements that are close to what a James Bond movie is, but what we've established. I mean, you're right. When there's not the gun barrel opening and it's just the 007, like there's something to be said for like setting the mood of the story or the tone, and you know that opening sequence does so much to like. All right,
it gets me ready.
Yep.
So that was something I noticed that they tried, and I when I say they tried, they came up with a unique 007 logo title screen. Cool. It's something that makes me think about this today. If someone tried to do this today, there would be incalculable amounts of money spent trying to make the next James Bond theme.
Oh, absolutely.
Like if they tried to make a remake, there's going to be a focus group that says there needs to be a James Bond theme. We cannot have no James Bond theme. We have to have something that feels like James Bond, is as iconic as the James Bond theme, but cannot in any way, shape, or form be the James Bond theme. And it would somehow either be the worst thing you ever heard or better than the original, and no in between. It'd be a 90-10 split. Yeah, no, it's James Bond. It's James Bond shaped.
Yep, and James Bond-ish.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say something now that I said I was bored in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I've been bored in a lot of these movies, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
Lately.
Yep.
And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're not waiting years and years in between them to watch them. You know, this is them.
Right.
I mean, you know, we're not watching them every single night, but you know, how long have we been doing this podcast, Lucas? For
this particular one, we started 2021, I think. Maybe later than that. Maybe
God.
Yeah, we've been doing this for a couple of years.
Really?
So, but still, 2 or 3 years, and we've already seen how many of them, right?
Yeah.
So
and this is a 50-year lifespan, and we've condensed it into 2 years now of 25 years of it. Now.
Right. Mm-hmm. So the
you're right.
So after a while, they all start feeling very like meandery, like
and formula.
And I think what was the detriment of this movie was that they tried too much to try like that to be that formula. They should have done their own thing. Like, hey, we're gonna be James Bond, but James Bond is gonna be like a hardened assassin. Like a really get back to that.
You mean like James Bond?
Like well, how we started.
Yeah. The written word. Yeah.
Yeah. If they took the other path, they went. There was Dr. No, From Russia with Love, and then Goldfinger. If they had taken the From Russia with Love path as opposed to the Goldfinger path.
Yeah, if they just really leaned into that and tried something different, then I think this would have been better. It wouldn't have been that James Bond movie, but we wouldn't have been comparing it to that other stuff. It would have just been its own thing. But the fact that they tried to keep it with the formula that we knew, then it was, you tried, but you missed enough of the elements where it's not the same. So I don't.
Yeah,
and I think in my mind, because of the age I was when I watched Thunderball, and that was at the time one of the it had gotten out of that was really gadgety and everything, but it was the age I was at when I watched it. It was very exciting. I loved watching it. I couldn't stop comparing it to Thunderball in my mind. I couldn't do it because I'm watching this movie and I'm remembering how they handled Domino's brother in Thunderball versus how they handled it in this movie. I couldn't stop comparing it, and maybe that's a shame. It's a shame that we can't have complete forgetfulness, and I could put all that behind me, and not even know and watch this as a movie that I'd never seen before.
Right.
But I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it because I'd already seen everything else.
Yeah.
And I think you really hit on something, Lars, that the 3 or 4 year anticipation you have between when they drop a new James Bond movie, that anticipation, all of a sudden, ooh, there's a new James Bond movie coming out. That's something that, because of the way we're doing this, we can't
replicate.
You can't really use that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That kind of reminds me of so in 2015, Force Awakens comes out, and in 2016, Rogue One comes out, and in 2017, Last Jedi comes out, 2018, Solo, 2019, Rise of Skywalker. Which is different because compared to the original trilogy and the prequels, those came out in 3-year intervals. It was 77, 80, 83, and 99, 2002, 2005. They didn't let things build and they didn't let things simmer, and they responded to too much criticism too quickly, and they didn't let things progress properly, which was very frustrating.
Well, I guess that's what media is now, though. Like the streaming, you don't have to wait a long time in between like seasons, right? You can just binge watch everything. X-Files is probably the best example for me. When there's so many of those cliffhangers where Mulder's he's in a train car in the middle of the desert and it's on fire and the smoking man just set him on. He's gone, and you have to wait until
gotta wait till next week,
or you have to wait the whole summer. Oh my God, what's gonna happen? And now there's none of those kinds of build up.
No.
And I guess what I'm saying is that we've completely ruined the James Bond franchise for ourselves in that we're now
doing it to
ourselves. So.
Well, see that
it's funny. It's funny you said that, Lars, because I never really thought about it that way. You kept asking me, "You need to watch Lost. You need to watch Lost," and I'm like, I don't know. I watched the first one. I couldn't get into it, and then Christmas morning, after the last one, you'd given me the DVD set of all of them, and I spent a summer watching every one of them like back to back. Mom would go to work or something, and she'd come back. What have you done? I've done nothing but sit in my pajamas and watch Lost again. I watched Lost, and that was the first time I'd really ever done that. To where you don't have to have that anticipation of the cliffhanger suddenly isn't a cliffhanger. It's only a cliffhanger as long as I can fast forward to the next episode. It isn't a cliffhanger anymore.
That was always a problem. That was probably a problem for me when I was growing up. Is there were all these things I wanted to watch, but I guess because of the way my brain is shaped, I couldn't get into anything unless it was at like a season break, because I couldn't start the story, and I'd always want to watch the story from the beginning. And that's been a great thing with shows hitting streaming. But at the same time, I kind of like that there's everyone but Netflix has been doing this, where they will release an episode a week, and you get that anticipation, and it simmers and it builds, as opposed to the Netflix model where everything drops at once, and you get these micro fandoms that exist for a week, and then what now? And
you still have to. There's one that Mom and I watch, Virgin River. It's a
I'm well aware of Virgin River.
Okay, and we wait for it to come out, and then they drop the whole season, and then Mom and I watch it over a weekend, and then the anticipation's still there. It's just for the next drop, which is a year from now, so it's still there. It's just not. We do it to ourselves. We could watch it one a week or one a month, but we don't do it.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. We have done this to ourselves by watching all the James Bond movies
In this
in rapid succession.
Yeah, this is what's happening. I But for I'm getting antsy now to like. With that being said, I want us to speed up and get to the Bonds that I remember seeing.
I cannot wait for
because I remember seeing Goldeneye. Like I think Goldeneye was the first one that I saw in the theater.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah. That's what I remember too.
Well, I mean,
What year? What year was that?
94, 95?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
because I mean, you wouldn't have taken us to go see Living Daylights, and you wouldn't have taken us to go see License to Kill.
No, that's about right.
So like that was the first one that I'm excited for that one. So now it's just like, all right, we just gotta, and because now I also know I have seen the next one that we're gonna watch, and it is horrible, and I just want to get through it.
Which is
which
is
View to a Kill.
Oh, okay, got it.
Oh god,
you don't like Nazi super baby Christopher Walken?
no, I'm good.
You really hit on an interesting point there, Lars. That my perception of James Bond is really based on the first time I saw it,
Right?
and then it's kind of changed through the years, But my first memory of James Bond is Sean Connery and in Dr. No.
Right.
And your first memory of it is that's not your first memory. You've had to go back and look at that past, but your first memory is Goldeneye. So that's what you grew up thinking. That's who James Bond is.
Yeah, that's
Right.
I'm in the same boat.
And to you it is, and that's really interesting that this timeline or what has gone on so long that people jump into it in different places and think, oh, that's James Bond.
I can remember being a child and talking to Tom about James Bond and how Tom Hurth and his perspective on stuff, and he was a Connery purist as well. But also, I remember him being super fond of Timothy Dalton as well.
Yep.
Well, and then so much of going along with that, Dad, like so much of my memory of James Bond is also the video game, the GoldenEye video game. So there's a lot that just it's interesting how this pretty silly character has kind of grown and shaped so many people's memories. And with that being said, I'm interested to know there's got to be people that think that this is their James Bond. This
Matt.
one.
No, I'm sorry. Thought we were talking about
this one.
No, I thought we were talking about Roger Moore for a second. I'm sorry.
No. This one.
Yeah. I know.
Because I know that there's people that think that Roger Moore is the best James Bond, and but okay,
fine.
But there's some people that there's got to be somebody out there that thinks this is James Bond.
Yes, and there's also people.
The one you just watched. They've got. I'm sure that there are people.
There's two guys, and they're both dead.
Right.
There's not a chance.
There's people who think this is James Bond, and there's also people who play chess with pigeons.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, but
and you know what? If you had never watched a James Bond movie, I understand where you're going with this. If you had never seen a James Bond movie and your dad took you to see this movie, you would think that's James Bond, and you go, "That's the dumbest thing I ever saw. I'm never going to watch a James Bond movie ever."
Yeah.
Or maybe not.
I mean, yeah, because it's not super gadgety. There's some gadgets, but there's not. It's more.
It's more mellow.
I didn't.
More mellow.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
You're right. You are absolutely right. If you think about it in that way, that this movie just appeared in front of us, and there are a group of people that have never seen a James Bond movie, and they just went to the theater and watched this.
Yep.
You're right. I mean, you did the same thing with GoldenEye.
Yep.
Yep. That's a really interesting way to think about that.
Absolutely.
This is something completely separate, but I've always thought about this, that when Endgame or Infinity War came out, the payoff was seeing all 20 some odd movies before it. I'm sure that there was somebody that showed up and said, "Oh, big summer blockbuster! I'm going to go watch this."
I actually met that guy,
and I've
met that guy,
and I've never seen it.
No, they had no idea what was going on. That would have been amazing.
So my old
to go like.
My old boss hated sci-fi movies. My old boss hated sci-fi movies, and his wife was a huge fan of Marvel movies and stuff, and he relented finally. And he'd seen a few of them sporadically, and he relented finally, and went to Endgame. And I wish I had been there. I just that sounds so much fun. That sounds like so much fun.
You've wandered into part 20 of a 20-part film series, and it's like, wow.
And you have no clue what's going on.
There's a talking raccoon?
There's a talking raccoon in this thing? What?
So I do want to ask you guys one thing. So what did you think about when they hooked up the giant styrofoam container to the back of the car driving off, and then it ends up they open the styrofoam container and there's a motorcycle in it?
Fine.
Whatever. That was the only gadget.
Yeah, the car, the motorcycle. Yeah,
a motorcycle.
Which there's only one gadget in You Only Live Twice, and it's Nelly.
Yep.
So
and there's nothing necessarily wrong with
Yeah, but Nelly was pretty cool. But I'll leave that one.
I don't know. It was nice to see Sean again, especially since I didn't like his last official one.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, you got to make a better one. It wasn't by much, but you got to make a better one. But it definitely you could clearly see that the movies worked. I don't think we said enough about this. That the movies worked because of Covey, Broccoli, and it was another guy. Who was his guy? It was Wilson.
It was a team. It was a team effort that understood the. I don't want to say formula. It's not really a formula. This one tried to use a formula. There's a
Saltzman.
There's just something about that whole group, and they understood who James Bond was. And I can't overemphasize my feeling about the music behind it. It really gets me. The James Bond music really gets me. And when you see something that's trying to be James Bond that doesn't have anything like that, it just falls flat.
Yeah.
It was interesting to watch, though.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen it. As
a
forever.
cultural artifact, it is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that had this been Thunderball. Ooh, that's what would have happened if McClory actually won out at the very, very beginning, and this was Thunderball. I don't think that we get to where we are now.
No,
I think this would have stopped the James Bond kind of dead in their tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but on the flip side, Thunderball was in 60. What? It's hard to say, but I think you're right. This would have ground it to a halt.
Yeah, all right, well,
yeah,
we're kind of done with these because these aren't. Yeah, thanks a bunch, but I'm not gonna remember too much about this one. I don't think.
No. It's fine. It is perfectly adequate in most ways, but otherwise, what would have been interesting is if this was a success, and I mean the movie was a success. It made back its money. It was a box office hit, and they didn't go anywhere. They didn't go anywhere with it because they didn't have source material to work with. But there are plenty of writers who can write James Bond movies, can write James Bond stuff. What does the older James Bond franchise do in response? If now there's a competing James Bond franchise, because we've never really seen that in any kind of film or fiction. We see competing franchises: Star Wars, Star Trek, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, things that are similar but not really this
not the actual same character.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This was a success. Why didn't they just keep making different? There should have been more of these. Yeah. But actually, I think that was one of the terms of McClory's winning out was that he was only able to make this one. He couldn't. He couldn't make any other James Bond stories. You can only make Thunderball.
Huh. I thought it was I could be wrong, but for some reason I thought it was they went back to the drawing board and realized, oh shit, we have only what's it called to work with, only Thunderball to work with. So
Yeah, that was the only one he got.
right.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why they didn't do something different. Like, why didn't they hire other writers
I don't know.
to make their own James Bond stories and build their own canon off of that?
But because they couldn't. He only owned this James Bond for the story of Thunderball.
Ah, okay. I misunderstood what had happened. So
They could have made James Bond-like movies, but it couldn't be James Bond. It could be
right. I'm
Bob
Yeah,
Bond.
I'm following now, yeah.
Whatever, right. You brought up a good point, both of you. I'm really looking forward to starting to watch the movies that you guys got into the timeline, because this entire time we've been doing this for, 2 years now, you've been watching the movies that I watched first, in sequence. You've watched some
Subsequently.
doing
Right.
this, but you didn't go to the movies for the first time and watch one. So I'm really looking forward to your take on going forward from like Octopussy or not Octopussy, from like
Yeah,
GoldenEye,
'cause
or
that's
whatever, where you jumped into James Bond. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on
Right,
that. This is going to be
because
interesting.
when I think of James Bond, I think of Pierce Brosnan.
Yep.
That's his
Wow.
shape in my head.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm really interested to see, because I don't think you've seen any of the newer ones.
I've
right?
seen several of the. I've seen the first 3 of Daniel Craig.
Okay. I didn't know if you'd seen any of them.
And
Okay.
I've got some. I like them. There are some things about them I like. There's some things about them I don't. It's really frustrating because, as I said, James Bond looks like Pierce Brosnan in my head, and he's got he's got what, 5 movies, and I think 3 of them might be good, which is the frustrating part.
No, this is
Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah, Pierce Brosnan's got what, like 4 or 5 movies, and
He's got 4.
Okay, and 2 of them are good.
4. Yeah.
I think maybe 3. Never mind, I could be wrong. It's been a while. I just remember thinking one of them was atrocious, and that kind of bringing the average down.
This is going to be fun.
I would agree.
So the next one is The next one is our last Roger Moore movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yes, it
right.
is.
Yep.
Going out with
Not with a bang, with a whimper.
You know what? I will say that maybe it's because we haven't done this in a while. I would have never thought that we would have been talking for an hour about this movie.
Yeah.
But we didn't talk about just this movie, about other things. But we've been talking for an hour, guys.
Well, yeah. Like, it's funny, on the other show we did, the last episode we did for that, I wasn't expecting us to talk for an hour about the ones we did, and then it was actually, we spent maybe 20-25 minutes talking about the movies, and then we went off on an unrelated tangent.
Yeah, I think, again, for me it was, I was more surprised that it wasn't as bad. It was still bad, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I think that I'm just kind of in a James Bond malaise right now, and that would be, that I'm just like, all right, there's James Bond again. He's gonna do stuff, and I'm just kind of not going through the motions, but just like let's go.
We need to get our second.
Yeah. And we're gonna get that with Timothy Dalton.
I remember enjoying it, but I haven't seen those in 30 years.
I think he's.
He does something new. He does something new with the character. Anyway, Lucas, where can people find us?
We can be found basically on any streaming platform, Stitcher, Spotify, Podbean, whatever you want. If there's something you want, reach out to us. We'll get something going for you. Our theme music, Iron Curtain Shuffle, is done by the incredible Lillian Boyd. You can find her at Here Lies Lil on Twitter.
And James Bond will return in A View to a Kill.
All right, everyone have a good night.